The FBI being praised across the board for its quick action in this case, while there is a divide about whether political rhetoric sparked it. Let's talk about it with tonight's Power Panel. Ron Hoskow, former assistant director to the FBI. Buck Sexton, former member of the NYPD Intelligence Division and host of The Buck Sexton Show. And Juan Williams, co-host of The Five. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you.
Good to be with you.
All right, Ron, I'll start with you. The speed at which this was done, and it's interesting that a man who has represented the suspect, we don't know if he is in this case, but formerly, had this to say about him. He said, when I woke up this morning, if you said there's 100 of your clients and he's one of the 100, and one of those people is going to get arrested for this, I probably would pick out many, many more before I would pick him out. Listen, this is a guy with a long legal record in the past, but apparently some people thought he was just fine.
He had a long record. He appeared to be, in some ways, hiding in plain sight. We saw the pictures of his van, of who he had targeted on his van, who he considered in the swamp on his van. You know, he's a guy who's jumping up and down saying, look at me, consider me. But a lot of that is First Amendment protected speech. Mm-hmm. So he has every right to parade up and down the streets and have those views and post them up on his van as long as he's not breaking the law.
Mm-hmm. And that's a tricky part because he had a prior issue with a bomb threat, which I believe that was one of the cases where he pled guilty. So, you know, there were those who knew of his anger and of his temper. But as for those political views, interesting that Harry Litman, who is a left-leaning attorney we have on quite a bit, very talented guy, he tweeted this out today. He says, the rage, the irrationality, the demonization of Democrats, Sayok is no wacko aberration. He is the very face of Trump. Buck, fair?
There are over 60 million people who voted for Donald Trump. This is one guy who's clearly disturbed. I mean, he's a career criminal, but he's far from a criminal mastermind. I think the calls for civility from the left are quite honestly unserious. They're unserious because of the record that they have, where they didn't call for similar civility when we had incidents that were even worse in terms of actual casualties suffered, Steve Scalise, which the president himself has mentioned. And you can't call for a ceasefire while you're still firing, which is exactly what Democrats have been doing all week. And if President Trump were to heed these calls, I just want to know if we're really supposed to believe that they would stop calling him a traitor, a sexist, a racist, crazy. I think we all know the answers to that. So why would he? He has nothing to do with this. He bears no responsibility for this whatsoever.
Well, and he's made a number of statements over the last couple of days, including today, that this is despicable, it's reprehensible, we all have to bring the temperature down a little bit. But as far as this political blame issue, Ben Shapiro tweets this: remember that time everybody correctly avoided blaming Bernie Sanders for one of his supporters shooting up a bunch of Congress people? Because that's not going to happen today with crazy bomber guy. Juan?
Well, I just find this so much a rhetorical jujitsu on the part of Trump supporters, because if you go back and look at Bernie Sanders was not making incendiary remarks about Donald Trump or any of his political opponents. I think there's a clear record. It's not arguable. If you go to a Trump rally, we just heard from Senator Feinstein about the locker up. There's also, you know, the Second Amendment people, NRA people could take care of Hillary. Obama was tapping me, wiretapping me, he's a liar, all this kind of thing. And at some point, especially with the reporters as enemy of the American people, you can understand why Democrats would say, hey, this is different than Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is making, you could say he's a socialist, you could say he wants single-payer Medicare and all that. But
it's not just Bernie Sanders.
But like him, the president hasn't said go out and kill people or go out and terrorize people. I mean, nobody's saying.
So don't misunderstand me. I'm not drawing any direct correlation. I didn't say that President Trump was directly responsible for the actions of Mr. Sayok. But I think that the atmosphere is highly charged. And I don't think there's any debate about the idea that we are a polarized country.
Yeah, Buck, I mean, folks would say there's plenty of heat on both sides. That, you know, kick them when they're down, get in their faces, approach them wherever they are, make their lives miserable. I mean, that conversation is happening on the left side.
Well, there's also a political culture on the left right now that has, for months, embraced mob tactics in public. They've even tried to parse whether mob is a term you can use for a mass of people that are threatening individuals, menacing them in restaurants, which I think they lost that debate. But this isn't just something that a few people have done. We're seeing crowds of individuals acting out in a way that is full of rage, that is frightening, that is meant to intimidate, and then seeing multimillionaire TV pundits and anchors at different networks than this one saying that that behavior is okay. So it's a completely different universe from one obviously crazy individual living in a van covered with the comments section of some websites that he pulled together and deciding to take these incredibly vile actions. Everyone agrees what this guy did was disgusting, and the president said it. Everyone has said it.
But I think
there's something else going on, though, on the left, where they seem to think that this kind of intimidation is warranted because they think that Trump is a fascist, because Trump is destroying the country, because Trump is undermining our institutions. That is the rhetoric that's coming from the top of the Democratic Party, and the media apparatus arrayed against Trump all the time.
Let me bring Ron in here, because I want some more of the law enforcement perspective, too. When you have so much heat on both sides, and we've seen the, groups that get together, and they're very much diametrically opposed to each other, mixing it up in the streets, whether it's in Portland or somewhere else. There's been plenty of that. I mean, how in the world does law enforcement keep a handle on that while, as you said, allowing people their First Amendment expressions?
Yeah, it can be very hard to do. I know from the FBI perspective, we had our guidelines, and there's the third rail is around the First Amendment protected activity. You have to be very, very cautious, and at the end of the day, you're not just looking for hateful speech or ugly rhetoric, you're looking for actions. That there is activity that's moving you toward executing a threat, plotting a crime, conspiring with other people to effect a crime. And it can be a very, very fine line between hollering at somebody and agreeing with somebody to holler louder and to do ugly things, and then to cross that line into a crime. That can happen in the blink of an eye. So this is a very difficult job for law enforcement, and you see it not just for the FBI, but for law enforcement across the country. I agree with, I think, everyone that there is ugly rhetoric on all sides. I think there's tremendous hypocrisy on all sides, and it's up to law enforcement to put that off to the side and just focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree they've done excellent work. All of us would give them a nod and thank them very much for how they've gotten this thing done in just a matter of days.
A matter of days. It was incredible.
Thank you all. Great to have you here tonight.